Why it's hard for you to be loved. Why it's hard for you to be loved. That is something that I've struggled with for a very long time. For a very long time. I I've never really felt loved, but as a child and a teenager, I didn't quite know why that was so. I couldn't quite place it, why I didn't really feel loved. It's only now that I realize that I didn't feel loved by my own mother. I didn't feel loved by my own sister. And the reason I couldn't quite put a finger on it as to why I felt empty, unloved, and unlovable, it's because my family has always been there. We are a very small family and we've just always been there for each other. And recently I'm also realizing that there's codependency, which is a very unhealthy dynamic of being too reliant or too dependent on each other. So it has just always been us, and my family has always been there. Whenever we were each going through our things, we were the ones there for each other. We were raised by a single mother, and we spent most of the time together. We did almost everything together. And so, of course, it didn't make sense to me how I can feel unloved when I had a mother who was physically present for most of the time. Like, my mother has never been the kind of mother to be just going away randomly, leaving us, or just maybe not coming back from work. My mother has just been the kind of mother that is very physically present. She comes back from work, comes back to us. Weekends, she's with us. We would go to church with her. We would go to town with her. We would go out with her. We were very, I just think codependent is the word. We were very dependent on each other. And because extended family members, there were issues between us and them, we, as just like the immediate family, we really became really close as a small family, just my mother and her children. So there was no room for me to feel like, to think that I'm not loved, because my mother was taking care of me, taking care of my needs, taking care of me physically, taking care of me financially. She was physically present, but there was never an emotional connection. And sometimes I find it very hard to explain it. And I think someone who has been through it, that's the only person that can really get it, because sometimes I just don't know how to put it into words. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to explain to someone who knows my mother, to people who have looked at my mother raising her kids single handedly, never abandoning her kids, almost giving up. I wouldn't even say like giving up everything, but I would say fully committing to raising her kids. Let me put it like that. I don't know how I would explain to people who have observed my mother raise us up and perceived her to loving us. There've literally been people who have told my mother that you love your kids so much. Again, this goes back to the codependency that is within this family, because we just do things together and we are not a very outgoing family. So most of the time we are indoors watching TV together, watching movies together, we pray together, we go to church together. Everything has just been us, us, us. And it might seem like, oh yeah, that's cool, they're a very close family, but I now see that we actually needed other circles of people in our lives. We needed some separation from each other because it made us too reliant and too dependent on each other, especially for my mother, because she was and still is a single mother who became so reliant and so dependent on her children. And seeing us grow and take take our own identity, have our own opinions, and realizing that eventually we will move out of home. I mean, I've already moved out. Well, I went to school and then now I'm back home. But also seeing her going through that process of understanding that we're not always going to be here, it makes me realize much more that we actually should have nurtured a relationship where we are able to a very healthy level to live our separate lives, that we don't always have to like be together. We don't always have to do things together. We don't always have to be so dependent and so reliant on each other. And so because of all of that, because of my mother's physical presence, because of my mother's commitment to raise us, because of the fact that now I'm in my late 20s, I'm a young adult, I'm unemployed, and I'm home, and my mother is taking care of me financially. Because of all those reasons, it just didn't make sense for me to feel unloved, you know? Because how could I dare say that I'm not loved when I'm in a home with a mother who provides for me? How can I say as a child I was not loved when I had a mother who took care of my needs and other kids didn't have that? But here today I stand and I say that, yes, I had a mother who raised me, committed to raising me, was physically present, but I actually felt unloved. Until this day, I still don't feel love. And unfortunately, I'm coming to a very painful realization that my mother may never be able to love me in the way that truly matters, in a very genuine, authentic way. I'm coming to that painful realization that that may never happen. Just the other day, I was listening to a podcast about, having a parent who is like that, who is emotionally unavailable and emotionally disconnected. And this lady said, you can never get water from a rock. And that really hit so hard for me, because that my mother is the rock that I've been trying to get the water from, and I'm just never gonna get it. I'm never gonna get it, and it hurts. It hurts so much. It hurts so much to think of my mother in that way, to look at my mother and think she's the rock that I'm never gonna get the water from. I'm never gonna have that motherly affection where I feel seen, loved, valued by my own mother. And because of that relationship between my mother and I, between my family and I, because unfortunately, how my mother was, it transferred to my sister, specifically my sister, out of all my mother's children. And I also had to face that with my sister, with the only sister that I have, also feeling unloved and feeling like there wasn't really a sisterhood. And again, observers, people from the outside, they used to look at us and say, you guys are so close. Like other older people would say to us, I wish my kids were as close as you were. And I've said this before in previous episodes, that the only reason that my sister and I were as close as we were, or seemed to be as close as we were, it's because I tolerated her belittling me. I tolerated her making jokes that would hurt, jokes at my expense. I tolerated the bullying, the bossing around. I tolerated all of that. And so somehow it seemed like our relationship was functioning, but I was just slowly chipping away. I was slowly, just gradually feeling like I was dying a slow death. There was literally a time when I felt like that. And that was a time when I wasn't even sure where the pain was coming from, because I always felt like there was a pain in my heart. And the pain actually came from the emotional abuse that I endured from my own mother and my own sister, but I couldn't really pinpoint it. Again, I think I didn't want to admit that not only were they not loving, but they were also emotionally abusive. So I think I wasn't at a point where maybe I wanted to really admit that. I think I wasn't at a point where I could admit that to myself, because again, we always seem to be there for each other when we're going through things. The most people that I the most of my time I spend it with my family. And so I had no reason to think that my family doesn't love me, to feel unloved. And I'm at a point where I don't care. I don't give a single flying care whether they think they love me. Again, I'm not gonna believe something just because someone believes it. If you see a crazy person and they tell you that this paper is a plane, you know that the paper is not a plane. So you're obviously not gonna believe the crazy person, because you can acknowledge that, okay, this is a crazy person. So they obviously believe that the paper is a car or food or whatever. You can acknowledge that. And you're not also going to start believing that, oh, you are right. The paper is actually a car, or it is actually a burger, and let's eat it. So where I am, I'm choosing to be a sane person and look outside and say, hey, it's okay if my mother wants to believe that she loves me. That's her belief. It's okay that my sister wants to believe that she loves me. That's her belief. I have no right to try and change their beliefs, you know? If that's what they want to believe, they can go ahead and believe that. But I'm not gonna entertain the lies. If that's what they want to believe, sure, believe it. But I'm not gonna say the paper is a pizza and and be part of the madness. I'm not. I'm not playing that game anymore. And so because of the relationship that I have with my own family, where now I'm fully realizing how toxic, and I even hate that word because it's used so lightly in social media spaces, but I actually realize how toxic, unhealthy. I realize the emotional abuse, the psychological abuse. I realize the dysfunctionality within my family, and how that has not only affected, obviously, my relationship with my family, but also my relationship with anyone else. I really feel unloved when it comes to having friends, or having a significant other, or just other relationships in life. You know, like other relationships that you get to have in life. I have a hard time believing that people really love me. I feel unlovable. I feel unloved. I don't know how to explain this. I think sometimes I expect people to love me too much, but then sometimes when people express that they love me or show me that they love me, I also don't know how to take that. I'm just I really have a hard time. I really have a hard time understanding myself, and I know this is part of the healing journey. It's part of the healing journey. I'm gonna go through the confusing times. I'm gonna go through the times where I feel like I'm crazy, or I feel like I don't make sense, where I feel like I'm weird, like I'm strange, like I'm odd. It's part of the healing process. And I have to remind myself this. I actually just made a note here as I was thinking about this, and sometimes I just feel weird. I feel like I'm a weird person, and I think especially when it comes to relationships, whether friendship, family, romantic relationship, I just I don't know how to function. Obviously, because I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. And so when it comes to forming, building, maintaining relationships, I think I'm just weird, and I feel that I'm not lovable. I feel like people are not going to love me, or they're not going to meet my standards, or I'm not going to meet their standards. And before I know it, it feels so complicated. And so as I was thinking about that, I wrote this note down as like a note from God, because as I was having all these thoughts, this thought actually came to my mind, and it says, put yourself out there. You get better with practice. Put yourself out there. You'll get better with practice. I'm not great with relationships. I I have a very complicated relationship with relationships. I know that probably doesn't even make sense, but I want to have genuine relationships. And I think for the first time, I'm really at a point where I really just want to have genuine friendships. Because I used to even just want to avoid friendships altogether. I used to want to avoid being in a relationship altogether because I felt like, I'm unlovable. They're not going to really love me. I felt like I couldn't really be myself. But now I'm craving genuine, authentic relationships, like a friend, a partner, as somebody, that I just really feel like I can lean on and trust, and they can lean on me and trust me. And knowing me, I've really been good at being there for other people, even to an extent where I was depleting myself. But I just think I want to be in a relationship where someone else is willing to give as much as I'm giving, where someone is willing to be there for me as much as I'm there for them. Because unfortunately, with my mother and my sister, that was not the case. I gave so much of myself, and they never got enough. And not only did they not get enough, they also abused me, didn't love me, didn't really support me, didn't really see me, didn't really value me. And also they managed to make me not value myself, to also make myself feel, to also make myself small. They would make me feel small. They would make me small to such a point that I ended up doing it even myself, where I felt like I always had to just minimize myself. I always had to just make myself small because, I don't know, in some twisted way I thought that was being humble. Being a Christian, man, being a Christian, sometimes you gotta let the Lord teach you about these things, because we are taught to be humble, be meek, and we think that means constantly letting people, run over you, use you as a doormat. That means constantly letting people hurt you, take advantage of you, abuse you. And no, it doesn't. I am still a humble person. I'd really like to hope so, but I'm no longer really tolerating being taken advantage of. Other times that I will be taken advantage of, probably, but I think I really let it slide and I let it happen more often because I thought that was being a good person. I thought overextending myself, overcompensating, doing more than what was expected of me, going above and beyond for other people, overstretching myself, like just doing more, doing the most. When you're just doing the most and it's so unnecessary. Like, you can be there for other people, but then there's like, you know what, you were supposed to be there for that person, but now you're just doing the most. You were supposed to support your family members, but you are doing the most. Like, just because your family member is going through something doesn't mean now you have to take a loan and then sell your house and then sell your car. That's not always necessary. You can be there for somebody, but not like completely shattering your life. You know what I mean? And I feel like, metaphorically speaking, that was me. I was the one to be like, like taking a loan, selling my house. Again, this is just metaphorically. I don't have a house and I've never taken a loan in my life. But figuratively speaking, that was me. Like, I was the kind of person to be like emotionally taking a loan, emotionally selling my house, selling my home, selling my shoes because you need help. instead of just like letting you know that, hey, I'm here to help you. We can talk through some options to help you get through this. But at the end of the day, there's a full stop to like helping a person. You can be there for someone, but there is a full stop. And it hurts me that it's like that. It does bug me. I wish we were kind enough and good enough with each other that there were actually just no boundaries, like in terms of like us helping each other. I don't know, maybe it's also an unhealthy way, to have no boundaries when it comes to helping each other. But I guess in a perfect world, you would trust that you can go above and beyond for somebody because they would also do the same. In a perfect world, you would really just, do the most for somebody and really be there for them because you trust that if the tables were turned, they would do the same for you. But unfortunately, that was not the case with my family. When the tables were turned, they were not taking loans for me. They were not selling their houses. They were not selling their cars. Honestly, they were just not even doing the bare minimum to be there for me. And so now I'm currently at a stage where there are two men in my life that I've known for a couple of months now. And one is an older man who is slowly becoming a father figure to me. And I've never had like a present father. So that is very new for me. And the second man is someone who is of my age, who is a peer, and I'm into him. I like him, but he doesn't know. And I feel strangely unlovable, the fact that these two men have seemed to like me. Like the younger one, let's call him Z, and then the older one, let's call him X. So Mr. X, father figure, and then Z, my interest. Z has been more of like a friend and really nice guy. Just, they not like, in a supportive way or anything, but just like a good friend. And then Mr. X has really just been there for me. I've been able to talk to him about the things that I'm going through with my family. I've been able to talk to him about me at one point taking antidepressants, me feeling like I have to emotionally distance myself from my family. I've been able to talk to him about all those things. And interestingly, maybe not so interestingly, but conveniently, Mr. X and Z, they are father and son. So Mr. X is Z's father. So these two men have just been really welcoming. They starting to feel a little bit like family, and that scares me. I've been wondering, I've just been having this nudging feeling at the back of my heart and at the back of my mind where I just felt like, maybe things are going fast with Mr. X and Z. Like, and they're not even going fast. I see them like once a week. But we are getting close. They are starting to feel like family. And that's strange for me, feeling like they're very welcoming, they're very loving, they've just been there for me, especially Mr. X, because I've been able to talk to him about all these things. And I realized that it's hard for me to be loved. I feel unlovable. I feel like this is just all gonna end somehow. And I feel like I'm already thinking that I'm gonna lose them. I don't even know how. I don't even know why I'm already thinking about that. But I realize that it's because there's no guarantee that I won't get hurt. And one of the things that have been, I don't know what to call it, but one of the things that I've heard from some of the things that I'm listening to when it comes to like, the unhealthy family dynamics is that you will get hurt. Even the people who love you and are healthy, they will at one point disappoint you or hurt you. Because for me, my family has disappointed me and hurt me so many times. I think I'm at a point where I'm very unrealistic about relationships, that one mistake, and for me it triggers that you are not dependable, you cannot be trusted. And that's my trigger, because my family was not really dependable, was not, I couldn't really trust them with my feelings and myself. And so now that I'm becoming closer and closer with Mr. X and Z, it reminds me that there's no guarantee that they won't hurt me. They're very good people. They're very welcoming. They're very loving, but there's no guarantee that they won't disappoint me or they won't hurt me. And for me, in the past, it has been very easy for me to cut people out of my life because I don't want to give people more chances to hurt me. And I realized that it has been easy for me to cut other people out of my life. It's because with my family, I never got to a decision where I was cutting out my family or limited my interaction with my family. And so when it comes to other people, I have a very low tolerance of being hurt. A very, very low tolerance. Like one mistake and I'm just sending you out the gate. And I know that's not how relationships work. Relationships, they're about giving each other chances. Obviously, in some cases, other people are given way too many chances than they deserve. But I would hope that in a normal, healthy relationship, when we disappoint one another, when we hurt one another, we are able to talk about it, fix it, confront it, address it, find a resolution, and then move on. But because for me, with my relationship between my family and I, we never dealt with things like that. And the reason that, there was also a lot of hurt piling up within me, and I think even within them, it's because we were never the kind of, and we're still not. We are not the type of family that when we've hurt each other or disappointed each other, we sit down, we talk about it, we have the uncomfortable conversations, we address it, we deal with it, we find a way forward, like maybe we even like do some checkups, like how are we doing? Are we still going well? Like we've never been the type of healthy, communicating type of family. That has never been us. Instead, we just shut down and bury things and we keep it moving. And so when I started obviously having relationships with other people, friendships, romantic relationship, whatever type of relationship you want to call it, for me, my way of dealing with that was just, I'm going to cut you out. So I think I was doing the opposite of what my family and I do. So instead of just, shoving it down, burying it away and not confronting the issue and not dealing with it, I just quickly cut someone out of my life. Like if like I sense that you're gonna hurt me or you hurt me once, now I've gotten better. Now I give people second chances. But the third chance, you're out. Again, I think in a healthy relationship, people might disappoint you a couple of times. Like again, I'm not trying to promote tolerating abuse. I'm really, really not, because I'm fed up with my family and I don't want to tolerate their abuse any longer. But I would like to imagine that in a normal relationship, let's say you married for 20 years. Obviously in 20 years, you would have had like a couple or a number or multiple fights. Maybe not consistently, maybe not constantly, not frequently, but if you are married to someone for 20 years, you've obviously had some fights. You've obviously had some arguments. You've obviously had some ups and downs, and you had to deal with it. So I would hate to imagine myself when I'm married to someone, that I would be the type of person who walks away, as soon as we have a fight, and I throw the towel and I'm like, I'm leaving you. I can't stand this. I would like to stay in my marriage or my friendship or, like at work or in a career and sort things out with people, and not let it be so easy for me to just walk away instead of trying to find a resolution, instead of just really tackling the matter, dealing with the issue at hand, so that I don't just easily, walk away from people. Because I think for me, that has become a coping mechanism where if I feel like, you know what, you're hurting me and maybe I don't want to deal with this, I don't want to address it, I'm just going to cut you out of my life. I'm just going to walk away from this relationship. And so I think I'm conflicted when it comes to Mr. X and Z, because they really just, Z is starting to feel like a brother, a friend, even though I have romantic feelings for him. Don't tell him. And Mr. X is really starting to feel like a father. I have conflicting feelings about like opening up to them. A part of me feels like I'm not really opening up enough, even though, to be fair, with Mr. X, I have been opening up because he's been the one that I've been able to talk to about, like, the things that I've dealt, or my childhood, like my family dynamic and all of that. But at the same time, I also don't want to open up too soon. I think the way that the relationship is going between Mr. X and Z and myself, I feel like they just really starting to matter to me. And that scares me because I don't want to be disappointed. But because life is full of disappointments, I also can't just live that life where I fear being disappointed. I can't really live a life where I fear being hurt, because it's part of life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be expecting disappointment in relationship. I don't want to expect hurt. But at the same time, I don't want to be naive and act like that's never going to happen, because it will. And so I'm really becoming close with these two men, and they're starting to be really special to me. And I'm scared. I'm scared. I don't feel like I'm lovable. And the fact that they are actually loving me and seem to be embracing me and welcoming me in their inner circle, in their family, I'm scared. And even just saying that, I just feel so sad for myself, that I think I'm just even scared to be loved. Not only do I feel like I cannot be loved, but I'm even scared to be loved. I'm scared to open up to new relationships that could be meaningful, that could be valuable. I'm scared to really open up myself to those kind of relationships, because I guess I have a fear. I have a fear of disappointment, of getting hurt, of people not being dependable, of people not being reliable. Again, this is because my mother and my sister were like that. This is because my own family was not really dependable, was not really reliable, was not really there for me in a way that mattered to me, in a way that was meaningful to me. And I say in a way that was meaningful to me because if you asked my mother and my sister if they have not been there for me, they would count times that they think they were there for me. Again, this goes back to the crazy person. We're not going to start believing that a paper is a pizza or a car or a plane just because a crazy person says so. So no, in as much as they can pull out the paper and try to convince me that it's pizza, I'm not buying it. I've bought it for the very long time, and I was buying into it, and I was like, yeah, why would my mother want to hurt me? She loves me. Why would my sister want to hurt me? She loves me. Well, they did. They did hurt me. They were not reliable, they were not dependable, they were not supportive, they were not emotionally there. And quite frankly, I think they're just incapable of those things. And that's sad. Again, it goes back to the saying, you can't get water from a rock. I really think they're just incapable of genuinely, sincerely loving other people. Maybe not just me, just like loving other people, being there for them, just really being loving to other people. I just really think they're incapable of that. You just can't get water from a rock.